Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is TBSky, and what you're seeing on your screen right now is a still from the upcoming Justice League movie, a backstage still showing some of the actors that are playing Amazon side characters lounging about on the Batmobile. Now my first reaction to this still was that if the Amazons get to drive the Batmobile around, I am seeing Justice League on day one, and I don't care what the reviewers have to say, because that would be freaking awesome. But the purpose of the still, as it was released, is to showcase some of the costuming and design changes coming to the Amazons in the Justice League movie. Now, if you remember them from Wonder Woman, you might at this point already be able to tease out some of the subtle differences from that movie to the upcoming one, and it is, honestly, it's very hard to really tell the difference. Like, there's some very subtle shifts in details and aesthetics going on here that I thought it might be interesting to take a more up-close and in-depth look at. So let's pull up a comparison shot of how the Amazons looked in the Wonder Woman movie and compare them to how they're gonna look in the Justice League movie. I mean, you can hardly tell, right? Like, there's almost really no discernible difference between the two different versions of the Amazons. Oh my good lord. Okay, so there has obviously been a change. Now, before we get into this at all, to be fair, nobody has seen the Justice League movie yet, except maybe some critics and some advanced screenings. I certainly haven't. Maybe there's a reason in the narrative of the film why the Amazons are all running around in leather bikinis now. I'm not sure why, but this video is not about that. This video is about my contention, which is that even if there is an extremely good reason in the film for why all the Amazons decided to start fighting while wearing what looks to be like a 970 AD Victoria's Secret catalog outfit, even if that is the case, that there is some compelling narrative reason, like something Darkseid comes to Earth and then he takes away all their armor or whatever, the character designs that they have ended up with are still pretty bland, weak, and generic. And in order to illustrate exactly why this is, well, we have this comparison shot to their design in Wonder Woman. One of the things that Wonder Woman was rightly praised for was the strength of the character designs, especially as they pertain to the Amazons, especially as they pertain to creating a very specific aesthetic realm for Themyscira and the Amazon warriors that live on it to occupy, to contrast them against the real world, which is that World War I horrifying bleakness. And one of the ways that they achieve this is by doing two things that we would normally consider kind of contradictory and synthesizing them into a coherent whole. Specifically, that is fusing the aesthetics of martial tradition and Greco-Roman warrior and ancient Greek warrior visual tropes with obvious and highlighted femininity. And this is the thing, like, I don't think I'm saying anything controversial in saying that in Western culture in general, for quite a long time, the idea of a warrior was very strongly separated from the idea of a woman. Like, warriors were not generally considered feminine. It was considered a male thing. So a lot of our aesthetics of how a warrior is supposed to look comes from male-focused aesthetics. So one of the things that the Wonder Woman movie had to do when it came time to, oh, we need to design some warriors who are warriors and soldiers and martial looking, but also women, was they had to kind of fuse those two things together. And they did a lot of very interesting things in order to accomplish this. For one thing, elsewhere on my channel, there is a video about the boob plate problem, like the problem with breastplates that are literally shaped like breasts from a character design perspective. There are a lot of disadvantages to them and a lot of reasons why you shouldn't use them, but one of the reasons to use them is to highlight the femininity of whatever character they are applied to. The Amazons and Wonder Woman are wearing boob plate armor. It's not like super egregious like you see in some other high fantasy concept, but they are wearing it, and it highlights the fact that they have breasts, the fact that they have that particular set of feminine shapes attached to them. The same thing goes for the rest of their armor designs. Around the midriff, you see how the leather plates are overlapped. On these Amazons here, it's slightly different hues of leather, some slightly darker and some slightly lighter, that creates these lines that kind of create this triangular shape inwards towards their midriff, and that highlights the midriff. Essentially, it slims the midriff down a little bit, and it highlights a little bit more of an hourglass shape in them. That's even more explicit with this armor design over here, where you have lines that is explicitly cut into and then down, accentuating the idea of an hourglass figure. And then that leads you down into the belt that they have around their hips, which emphasizes the hips, which again is something that is traditionally associated with femininity, the idea of the slim waist and the wide hips. Even though these ladies are big giant buff ladies with tons of muscle, which tends to flatten out that hourglass shape typically for a lot of people. And here the costume design is very much designed to highlight that feminine idea of what a feminine person looks like is highlighted through the armor design. And because the armor design is so clearly martial, because it's clearly a uniform armor design, because they're clearly part of the same unit, because they're clearly part of the same military tradition that had designed these uniforms for them and this standardized gear for them, you get the unified impression that yes, they are absolutely feminine, they're absolutely female, they're absolutely women, but they are also soldiers of some kind, they're also warriors of some kind. And the general aesthetics, especially of the leather skirts and the bare legs and the long boots, gives us associates with gladiator imagery. Like the kind of imagery you would see when it comes to depicting a generic gladiator would include the same types of design decisions. And especially the centurion helmet on the Amazon warrior over here in the background ties us back to sort of Roman ideals, all of which is very much part of the Wonder Woman aesthetic history. So the character designs here do a fantastic job of grounding the characters in sort of Greco-Roman mythology aesthetics, while also tying them very strongly to the idea of femininity, while also highlighting the fact that they are soldiers. So it just, from a character design perspective, it's a very successful piece of design because it's a design that tells you a lot about the characters who are wearing the design, who are showcasing the design, which is where you get like very strong coherent character design, is when an audience can look at it and instantly have some semblance of, oh, I feel like I get that. I feel like I know where that's coming from, what that's trying to tell me, what that's part of, what aesthetic is that trying to communicate, what history is that trying to call back to. So having praised the Wonder Woman designs for the Amazons for about 7 minutes, let's take a look at the ones from the Justice League movie and see how exactly they fail to measure up. Now, it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that they're wearing less clothes. Like, that is a contributing factor, but that's not the reason why the designs are weaker. It's not because they're wearing skimpier outfits. It's not because they're more sexy. That's not the thing that makes the character design weaker. Now, there is a whole host of cultural problems attached to the idea of taking warrior women and putting them in bikinis to make them look sexier, and I'm going to link to an article down in the description that tackles that substantially more comprehensively and with much more insight than I can do. But from a character design perspective, these character designs are weaker. Well, first of all, the primary thing that makes them weaker is the color choices, or rather, the color choice, because there is only one color choice, and that color choice is brown. We've got brown up here on top of the headbands, we've got brown around the necks, we've got brown on the shoulders, we've got brown over the chest, we've got brown on the midriff of this one, we've got brown around the waist, we've got brown on the legs, we've got brown on the arms, we've got brown, brown, lighter brown, slightly darker brown, 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 brown with a side of brown, over top with some brown, and some brown sprinkled beside it with a color wash of brown, sidelined with some more brown, highlighted with brown. Brown, brown, and more brown. And what makes this even more egregious is that maybe it's just the lighting, but the Amazons in general tend to have that sort of sunburnt, tanned, strong muscle woman kind of aesthetic going on, which means their skin is kind of a darker tone as well, which flows together with the clothes and the brown, 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 brown leather bikinis that they're wearing even more, which makes a muddled, washed out kind of color aesthetic, which again compare and contrast with the Amazons on the left. You have the shiny bright metal, which, like I said, it's shiny, it reflects light, it literally highlights wherever you put it on the character, becomes highlighted by the reflections of the light that comes off it, contrasted with some dark leather around the waist, contrasted with the bright metal around the hips, contrasted with the dark leather over the crotch and in the skirts, contrasted with the bright skin, contrasted with the golden plate on the leather boots, contrasted with the dark leather underneath. Like, there's a whole lot of differentiation going on in these character designs, which is part of what makes them stand out. What makes them pop is that they have these clear moments of highlighting and clear moments of contrast. That does not exist over here. And what also doesn't exist is any kind of coherent aesthetic, because when I look at these Amazons over here, I have no idea what they're supposed to be from. Like, if I didn't know they were from Justice League movie, if I didn't know they were Amazon warriors from, like, the Wonder Woman mythos, I would have no way whatsoever of finding out, because these women look like extras from literally any Mad Max movie. They look like NPCs from literally any Fallout game. They look like they're from any post-apocalyptic future vision dystopia thing you could possibly imagine, but equally, they could also be from some 1970s fighting dinosaurs claymation schlock B movie, like The Earth 70 million years ago, or whatever those movies were called, where it's cave women fighting dinosaurs or something for whatever reason. But they could equally also be from some sci-fi movie that takes place on some faraway warrior world where Colosseum women do battle for something or whatever. Like, they could be, because everything is just kind of brown, because there's no uniform tying them together aesthetically, because there is no aesthetic callback to any particular aesthetic moment in human history, they are so unmoored from any aesthetic grounding that I have no freaking idea what they're supposed to be from. Who are they supposed to be? Their character designs tell me nothing about who they are, and that is weak character design. Now, there are some indications that this look may only be a temporary look for the Amazons. Again, the trailers haven't revealed too much, but there was another still that was released from the Justice League movie, and that's the one over there on the right here, where this Amazon character apparently gets to dress up in Wonder Woman gear. Not exactly Wonder Woman's gear, but gear that is styled according to the same aesthetic, and that creates the unusual situation of highlighting once again what a piss-poor, bland, boring, uninspired character design choice that's going on in these designs, because, excuse me, remember how I talked about in the Amazon designs in the Wonder Woman movie, you have these moments of highlighting contrasted with like highlights and contrasts and clear differentiations of different parts of the character that show, that like, highlights the femininity on the chest, highlights the femininity on the hips, that highlights the fact that they're warriors by highlighting their arms, which are holding weapons, and which calls back to Greco-Roman aesthetics. All of that all of a sudden shows up over here when she gets to dress up as a proper Wonder Woman style Amazon warrior. All of a sudden you have this strong contrast between the skin color and the color of the armor. You have the highlighting of the arms as part of her warrior aesthetic. You have the metal headband all of a sudden returning after having been turned to leather for no discernible reason. You have, again, the waist and the hips being highlighted. You have the use of shiny metal to highlight different parts of the body. You have the long leather skirt calling back to, you know, gladiator aesthetic traditions and Greco-Roman aesthetic traditions, and you have the association with the Wonder Woman universe extremely explicitly in that she's literally wearing what seems to be a Wonder Woman cosplay. All of this makes for a really interesting, strong-looking character design, which is the kind of thing that a superhero movie ought to be good at. And then you go back and look at this one, and it's just kind of... But why, if you're clearly capable of doing better costume design, then where the hell was it? Now, there's also another still here, which is from the Wonder Woman movie, and I include this one because it's not about, oh, but they have lost their armor for some reason, so now they can only wear leather. If they had lost their metal armor and could only wear leather, where the hell did this thing go? Like this, again, look at how the lines across the waist help accentuate the female form. The belt across the hips helps accentuate the hips and helps accentuate the femininity there. Look how the metal headband across the head helps highlight the eyes, draw your attention to the face. And how the bracers, which are leather this time, across the arms helps highlight her warrior nature. Like, all of the good design decisions from the Wonder Woman Amazons over here are present here, even though she's only wearing leather armor. So just that, okay, they don't have access to metal armor anymore does not excuse this in any way, shape, or form. Now, maybe there's a justification in the Justice League movie. Maybe it's in the Justice League movie, Darkseid comes down and he takes away like 90% of all the clothes on Themyscira, so they have to share them all between them and they can only have like a third of an outfit each. Maybe that's a thing that happens in the movie, but even if that's what happens in the movie, you can do better than this. You can design more interesting stuff than this. Like, what the heck? Why are they only wearing leather, by the way? Does nobody have access to wool? Can you not, like, weave stuff on a loom? Like, surely it must be possible to get a hold of other materials than just leather to create some sort of unifying, coherent aesthetic. Like, they're wearing this shit. Why don't they have, like, cloaks or something that they wrap around themselves by way of protection from the elements? Or, I don't know, like, there's any number of things, a million things you could do to decorate, to accentuate, to highlight, to make a design like this much more visually striking, much more memorable, and much more interesting, none of which seems to have been done. Again, I've not seen the Justice League movie. These are only extras. They're probably going to be in the background of a few shots and never really show up in dialogue scenes or something. It's probably not that important to the overall quality of the Justice League movie. I'm not telling anyone to not go see Justice League based on, oh, I don't like the character designs of 5 of the Amazon warriors. That's not any of the point I'm trying to get across here. What I'm trying to get across here is just my utter astonishment and my bafflement at how you have these perfectly executed, like brilliantly realized, fantastic character designs ready and available. They probably still have the frickin' costumes like put away in a warehouse somewhere. And then for the next movie, you throw all of that aesthetic out. You throw all of that thematic and aesthetic connection out. All of those considerations and interesting smart design choices, you throw them out in order to go with the blandest, most generic, unfocused, uncreative, uninteresting tripe of character design that's just, it's such a weird thing to downgrade in a movie with a budget like the Justice League movie. Like, good lord. Anyway, I haven't seen the Justice League movie. I'm gonna see it eventually. I'm sure it's not going to ruin anything. I'm sure it's not going to be that important. But as a character designer, when I see that, I end up having to rant about it. So 17 minutes of that must surely be enough. My name has been TB Sky. If you like the video, you can leave a like down below, or you can throw a comment down there. I try to read all of them. I try to respond to all of them. I try to be active when I have something useful to respond to you with. I try to do it. If you disliked it, there's a dislike button, which you are encouraged to make use of, and you can subscribe for more videos like this, or videos that are nothing like this whatsoever, because I do many varied and interesting things on this channel. And all that's really left to say is thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time.